Well, I wonder what's going on tonight. This is strange because your comment came through on YouTube, Jason. Did it? Okay, Kurt's on in YouTube. So did it start, Kurt? And we'll hopefully get Kurt, Vic back. Like, I don't understand what's going on. This is strange tonight. Like, it should be starting everywhere. Hey, Pop, good to see you, man. How are you? How's everybody doing tonight? Not started on YouTube. What the hell's going on? It says it's on YouTube. Let me see what the hell's going on. Like, it says we're live. I don't understand what's going on. Honestly, I really don't understand what's going on. Well, I mean, if it didn't start on YouTube, just watch it on Rumble, guys. Like, oh, Jason says it's on now. Hey, it's better for me if you guys watch on Rumble anyway. You know what I mean? But I like to put it on YouTube for you guys, honestly. I really do. I literally put it on YouTube for you guys. But I hope people would watch on Rumble. Like I know like people like Jason. Jason will put it on YouTube and Rumble. To help out the show, and that's awesome. Not everybody has to do that. But it's great if you guys do. Yeah, we'll hopefully get Vic back here in a second, and we'll see what's going on. Hey, Heidi Pop, good to see you. And for those of you just joining, Vic was here, and we're hoping to get him back. Let me see if he messaged me or something. Oh, he says he lost internet connection. Let me see what's going on. Yeah, he says he lost internet service. So, hopefully, I mean, he's texting me now, guys. Saying, so hopefully, what he usually says, he says, I'm not going to show you, but Jason says, I've definitely gone through Vic's channel extensively to pull inspiration for my movies. Yeah, me, well, not for my movies, but like, I've definitely listened many times in my life where I've, been like, went through this or that, and I just put on Dogman Encounters. It's a fascinating channel, the encounters are amazing, He says hopefully service will come back in a couple minutes. So what we can do, guys, is I can just do like an open Q&A. Like if you guys have any questions for me or anything like that, like you can shoot them in the process. You guys know I got taken down off TikTok, right? Like. I put that out there today. I put out a thing for donations, but like I also put out there that I got taken down off TikTok, for absolutely no good reason. Absolutely no good reason. You know what I mean? I did absolutely nothing wrong. What was weird is I had a short hit about 15 or 16,000 views, and then once my short hit like 16,000 views, it seemed like that got me like attention or something, and that's what made them take me down. I know the one I put up with Carrie Cassidy, that got like 3,000 hits. And so, I mean, part of me wants to rebuild it, you know what I mean? But like, I just feel like so defeated, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, at least I didn't have a huge, hey, Kriya, good to see you. How are you? At least I didn't have a huge, following on there or whatever, But I mean, I don't understand why this is like, why the censorship is still rampant to this day, So, Jason and Derek are talking about that alien show that's on FX. I guess that's a good show. Yeah, TikTok does definitely ban. Yeah, So I'm not sure what is like able to be posted on there and what's not. I'm not sure what the deal is. So I mean, I still have one TikTok account. I do have one. I think it has like 600 followers or something on it or something like that. But yeah, I gotta definitely rebuild. So yeah, but we can ask. You guys can ask Vic your questions about Dogman. It should be really good. It should be a good show. And then if he doesn't get in service back, we'll just reschedule. It's not a big deal. You know. What I was going to do, I didn't, he verified last minute. What I was going to try to do tonight was I was going to try to do a call-in show. That's what I really wanted to do because I've been signed up with that website, Call-In Studio, and I've been wanting to take calls for a long time. So, I probably, will do a show with call-ins eventually, sooner here than later, that's I'm looking forward to that. But I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I keep putting it off, so, but, let me see if he's got internet. I guess he just still doesn't have internet, Today has just been a rough day. Oh, here he is. Here we go. There we go, guys. Hey, Vic, thanks. You got an internet now and everything?
Yeah, it's back up. I apologize for that. Yeah, the internet here at the studio just dropped for whatever reason.
Oh, it's okay. I'm glad to have you, I know the audience is really excited. One of my moderators, Jason, said he's went through your catalog extensively to draw inspiration. He's a film producer, so a lot of people have drawn like inspiration and, just entertainment and education about Dogman from your series over the years. Like, have you realized that you've had an impact on that many people? Do you ever think about it?
Well, you think about things like that, but my main focus is on just trying to help as many eyewitnesses as I can. However big the show gets is however big it gets and everything. It's nice to know that it has that much of an impact on people. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Yeah, here's a good comment from Mel. Mel says, again, about your voice. Mel says, I love his voice. Great voice, Vic. So, yeah. But let me ask you this. Like, how did you get started in this? And, like, what drew your attention to cryptids, and especially Dogman?
Thanks, Mel. That's awfully nice of you. What got me started in what I do is back in 2007 and 2008, I was a co-host on a Sasquatch-specific podcast called Campfire Shadows back then, and the other host, the main host, is now deceased, unfortunately. His name was Shane McMahon. But yeah, when I was doing that show, there were regulars who used to come in all the time and be guests, like Jim Bear Grant and Tim Kumbo Baker. Jim Bear Grant, he was actually the host of the show, and I used to listen all the time. And all of a sudden, one night, he made a comment, "Thanks, Kriya. That's awfully nice of you." One night, Jim Bear Grant put it out there for the listeners that he decided to step away from the show, and he said he was going to just spend more time in the woods, and consequently, he was looking for a replacement. And then he went on to say that he had a pretty good idea on who he thought his replacement should be. And I'm thinking, okay, well, who is this going to be? I used to listen to him every week. And then he goes on to say, I think it should be Vic Cundiff. He knew me from being a regular in their chat rooms and all. When he said Vic Cundiff, I thought, what are you talking about? I can't do anything like that. Well, after the show, he reached out to me and was asking me my thoughts on it. And I told him, I don't know. I'll have to think about this. And I did. I just put some thought into it. And I thought, well, I guess I'll give it a try. I love the topic. So why not? So before I knew it, I was co-hosting that show. And I did that for 2 years with Shane. And while we were doing that show, while I was co-hosting it, Bear and Kumbo, they had gone on some kind of an outing over the weekend someplace. And when they came back, they were talking about how someone in their group saw what they called a dog-faced booger. Well, I knew what a booger was. That's an appellation for a Sasquatch in the South. Well, when they said a dog-faced booger, I thought, what are they talking about? So I can't remember if I asked Bear or Kumbo about that after the show, but they told me they were talking about a dogman that this guy had seen. So I just put more research into dogmen, and it wasn't long before I just had this idea pop into my head. If you have a traumatic Sasquatch experience, you can almost go to your corner grocery store and find someone to get help from. But if you see one of these Dogman things, where do you go? Who do you speak with to try to get help? And in almost every case, a Dogman encounter is going to be 10 times more traumatic than a Sasquatch encounter. Well, I thought, you know what? There's a real need here. So years later, I put the pieces together to bring dogmanencounters.com online. And it wasn't too long after that when I had encounters coming in from all over, including other countries around the world. Well, a year after I brought dogmanencounters.com online, I aired the first episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. And then, yeah, the rest is history. I've literally spoken with eyewitnesses from every continent in the planet except for Antarctica. And I've literally spoken with thousands upon thousands of Dogman eyewitnesses, probably 3,000-4,000 of them. So, there's been a lot of exposure. I don't bat an eye if I get 3-4 brand new Dogman eyewitnesses contact me in one day. Some days I've had as many as 7 or 8 contact me. People I've never spoken with ever before in my life. So it really got some wings and took off.
That's amazing. And it makes me think, do you ever wonder about like, how do I say this? Like, do you ever wonder like just how many dogmen are out there? And were you ever surprised at like how many encounters you got? Like, were you ever surprised at the sheer amount of like people that are seeing this creature?
Yeah, well, there are so many things about Dogman that just surprise you. It never ends. It really never does. And it didn't take too long before I realized that these things literally all over, I mean, just all over the place. It's funny. There was a guy, this was years ago, probably about 9 years ago, maybe 10. This guy who lived in, maybe still lives in Rhode Island. He reached out to me and he was kind of thumbing his nose. Well, haha, at least I don't have to worry about any Dogmen here. So when he did that, when he said that, I thought, should I or shouldn't I? Well, I decided, yeah, I should. I sent him a link to an article that was on the internet about this Dogman that was seen all the time in Rhode Island so frequently that locals developed a name for it. I forgot what the name was, but I sent that article to him so he could read it and see, well, guess what? No, you've got them in Rhode Island too. So yeah, they're literally all over the place.
Yeah. We get a question from the chat. This is from Derek. Derek says, question for Vic. Where does he get the most phenomenon reports from globally? Would you say, would it be America?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely from America. But they do happen all over. I mean, literally all over the place. We've had guests on the show, for example, from countries where you think, wow, they have Dogmen there too. Well, yeah, they do have Dogmen there too. And then also there's that thing where people think that Dogman Encounters Radio is a what you see is what you get type situation. If I speak with an eyewitness from this place or that place, what's going to be on the show? Well, understand that a lot of people contact me who have no interest in coming on the show as a guest and putting their experiences out there. And that's totally fine. That's one of the frustrating things when there's so many people who need help, but they've got this idea for whatever reason that in order to speak with me, it's a requirement to come on the show and go public. But that's not the case at all. I mean, if someone needs help, all they have to do is go to dogmanencounters.com, submit a report, and I'll schedule a phone consultation with them. Now, if they just need help and that's all they want, then that's what I'll give them. I'll give them help. If they want to come on the show as a guest, we can do that too. But like I said, it's never a requirement. It's just an option. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Has that ever made you ponder what exactly this creature is? Like, I've heard weird stories about Dogman being dressed in military uniforms or like, some Dogmen wearing clothes. Like, have you ever thought that this thing might be some kind of research lab experiment, or do you feel like it's like an unclassified, animal that just, or do you think it's something more supernatural that lives between dimensions, or would you say all the above, or maybe it could be a little bit of everything?
For the longest time after I started doing this, I had the mentality that there's just one kind of Dogman, talking about the origins and all of the Dogmen. But as time has gone by, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than one kind of Dogman. You might have a kind of Dogman that was created by the government in a test tube. You might have another kind of Dogman that's just a flesh and blood creature that is out there trying to scratch out a living in the woods, pun intended. And then you might have another kind of dogman that's a supernatural being. Who's to say there aren't three different types? You speak with as many people as I have who've had dogman encounters, as many credible eyewitnesses, and it's only natural you're going to speak with a ton of them who they'll tell you about experiences they had that soundly point towards the dogmen they saw being just flesh and blood creatures that bled when they got shot or had offspring right there with them or had a limp, this or that quality. And then you've got this huge group over here of credible eyewitnesses who report seeing dogmen do things that point soundly towards the idea that what they saw was not a flesh and blood creature. It had supernatural abilities. And then also, too, you see so many credible eyewitnesses reporting that they had encounters that point soundly towards the idea that maybe the dogmen they saw were created in a test tube lab, in a test tube in a laboratory at the hands of the government. So, like I said, who's to say there aren't several kinds of dogmen out there? It's really hard to say.
Yeah. This is an interesting question from Puck Elf. He says, question for Vic, is it possible that dogmen are like the Banshee and Fae, that they follow people's bloodlines? And then he said something about Loop Guru. Loop, I don't know, maybe he means Rougarou. I'm not sure if he means Rougarou. He says Loop Guru, French dogman. Sorry.
Well, as far as French dogmen go, some people call them Loup-garou with a silent P. Others call them Rougarou with the R. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say. Anything's possible in this crazy world when you look at all the strange things that credible eyewitnesses report seeing these guys do. What isn't possible? So yeah, I mean, that might be exactly what's going on. It's really hard to say. Anybody who claims to have all the answers and they can tell you definitively this or that about dogmen, I mean, it's really hard to do that. It really is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if this is something you'll remember, but like out of all the stories you collected, which encounter kind of sticks out as being like the most unsettling or chilling?
Well, over the years, I mean, I've spoken with so many eyewitnesses who've had such traumatic encounters. I mean, there's nothing like talking to someone that's in their well into their 60s, for example, who in every other facet of their life, they just are well put together. But because of a traumatic dogman encounter, when they're recounting it for you, they sound like a frightened little kid who, right before dozing off in bed for the night, looked under their bed to see if there was a monster there and wound up coming nose to nose with the boogeyman. I mean, that just really tugs at your strings when you talk with someone who's affected that strongly. It's really unfortunate. It really is. But yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
I was saying, like, what is there a story that kind of stuck out the most, that was most chilling? Like one that kind of like just kind of, really stuck out, I guess.
Oh, well, wow. I've spoken with so many eyewitnesses and heard so many traumatic encounters. It's just really so hard to point to one. Yeah. One of the most traumatic ones that just comes to mind right now is one I've mentioned on several shows I've done before, where there was a man, the first eyewitness I spoke with. This was back in 2007 when he told me about this encounter. He was home alone. He lived right on the edge of the LBL, the land between the lakes is what that stands for. He was home alone because his wife was having a night out with the girls. And he lived in a 2-story home where at the very top of the steps, if you look down to the first floor, you could look across the kitchen floor and there you could see the kitchen door. It was in full view. Well, he had a pretty big dog, and because of that, he had a doggy door in that kitchen door. Well, he was laying up in bed just watching TV. It was a quiet night. Nothing was going on. He was just home alone watching TV when all of a sudden he could have just sworn he heard some strange sound in the house. It just didn't make sense. So he just brushed it off. No big deal. Everyone knows how that is. When you're home alone, you'll hear things like that. Well, before too much time had passed, he heard that same kind of sound again. So he muted the television and he's just sitting there listening and, nothing. So he turned the volume back up. Must be nothing. So shortly after that, he heard that same sound. So he muted the TV, got out of bed, walked to the top of the steps across the hallway up to the top of the steps, looked down, and was just looking around listening when his eyes went down the stairwell, and at that kitchen door where the doggy door was, to his horror, he saw this dog man that had one arm. I don't remember which one it was, but it had a whole arm and its head stuck through that doggy door, and its shoulder, whatever shoulder wasn't in the house, was banging on that dog door like it was trying to gain entry into the house. Now, if it would have been able to gain entry into the house, yeah, there's a strong possibility he wouldn't have known it was in the house. And that begs the question, why was it trying to get into the house? But the thing is, when eyewitnesses have encounters with these guys, one of the biggest reasons why they have a hard time coming to terms with their experiences is they're so rattled, they just don't see the forest for the trees. I mean, there's not a house around that if a dogman really wants to get in, it can't get in. That dogman, if it wanted to gain entry, it could have gained entry. There wasn't a door in the house, there wasn't a window in the house, there wasn't a wall in the house. It would have stopped it. But yeah, for whatever reason, that's what it did. And it understandably really freaked this guy out.
Wow, that's amazing. That's yeah. But has anybody ever gotten hurt by a dogman and escaped to live to tell the story?
Oh yeah. Over the years, I've spoken with 7, 8, maybe 9 very credible dogman eyewitnesses who've told me about being attacked by a dogman. And obviously, all of them got away. Now, the thing to understand is you're not going to get away from a dogman that's really got it in for you. If you get away from a dogman, period, it's because it allowed you to get away, not because you actually got away from it. You didn't evade it. You were allowed to leave. So, yeah, that's something to really keep in mind. These aren't people who are lucky enough to save themselves. They're allowed to leave the situation. But, yeah, it does happen. But keep in mind, too, I've spoken with maybe 3,000-4,000 or more dogman eyewitnesses over the years since I spoke with my first one back in 2007. If the grand total of credible eyewitnesses who've ever been harmed by one of the dogmen they encountered that I've spoken with is 7, 8, maybe 9, well, that tells you right there. As hard to believe as it might be, dogmen are actually safer to encounter than any of these animals that are big enough to harm people, like dogs, cats, horses, goats, pigs, camels, you name it. As hard to believe as it might be and as hard to accept as it is, if you have an encounter with a dogman, you're actually less likely to be harmed than if you have an encounter with any of these common animals that we accept being in existence day in, day out. I mean, what I'm getting at is if you speak with 3,000-4,000 people who have had direct interactions with horses and you ask them, okay, how many of you have ever been intentionally attacked by a horse you've interacted with, bitten, kicked, stomped, run into, you name it? Well, if you ask 3,000-4,000 people who've interacted with horses that question, the number of yeses is going to be in the hundreds, well into the hundreds. Well, if you swap out horses for any of the other common animals, same thing. If you ask 3,000-4,000 people that same question who've interacted with house cats or camels, goats, pigs, cattle, you name it, that answer, the number of yeses, they're going to be in the hundreds. So back to my point, as hard to accept as it might be, that does tell you right there that, yeah, dogmen are actually safer to interact with than any of these common animals. Now, it seems like every time I turn around when I'm on a show and I mention that, you've always got the person who says, well, what about the people who didn't get away? Well, yes, I can appreciate that, but if I only had a sample size of 5 or 10, that'd be one thing. But my sample size is 3,000-4,000 or more dogmen eyewitnesses, and tons of them were caught in very compromising situations where if the dogman wanted to take them out, wipe them out, it could have easily done so, but it didn't. It allowed them to leave. So with that in mind, that does tell me conclusively that these guys are not wired to rip us apart as soon as the opportunity presents itself as a whole. Now, will you have some deviant ones? Yeah, you name whatever critter that doesn't have deviant examples. You've got deviant horses, deviant goats, cattle, pigs, you name it. Deviant elephants, you name it, you've got deviant examples, deviant people. So why should dogmen be any different? But the most important thing to never lose sight of is the fact that it's clear because of the numbers that they're not actually wired to be that way. If you have a dogman that's dangerous and it will kill a person if it gets the opportunity, that's clearly by far and away the exception instead of the rule. I always say if you put your hand on a fire ant mound, you know they're going to light you up. They are dangerous. They are wired to be extremely dangerous and aggressive. That's how they are. 100 times out of 100, if you put your hand on a fire ant mound, you're going to get nailed. They're going to light you up. But if only 7, 8, maybe 9 dogman eyewitnesses out of thousands and thousands I've spoken with have ever been intentionally harmed, even though so many thousands of dogman eyewitnesses I've spoken with could have been attacked. I mean, we're talking about a lot of them were in places where no one would ever be the wiser what happened to them, but they were allowed to leave without a scratch. So that's just something to really keep in mind. And that's something I bring to a lot of eyewitnesses' attention who are having a lot of trouble coming to terms with their traumatic experiences with these guys.
That's great. Jason wants to know, let me see if I can find his the question. I'll find another. Ask another one here. This is a good one. This kind of is kind of like the question. He said, Kriya says, do you know of anyone who was saved from danger by a dogman, like where they were in like massive danger and someone came and like, yeah, I guess you kind of
Well, I don't think you're ever going to run into an altruistic dogman, but there's only one case I've heard of where a dogman was actually useful and possibly rendered aid to an eyewitness. Now, we don't know why this dogman did what it did to save her, but it might have done what it did to save her for reasons other than actually trying to save her. It's just so hard to say. But she was saved from a very dicey situation nonetheless due to the actions of this particular dogman. What I'm getting at is what happened is this woman was at a concert, a big concert, and she had to go to the bathroom. Well, the lines to the porta potties were just ridiculously long. So she's looking around thinking, oh boy, I can't wait that long. So she's looking around, and in the distance, she saw this tree line. So she just double timed it, triple timed it for that tree line to be able to go to the restroom, the bathroom back there. And when she made it all the way over there, I can't remember if she was in the tree line or just outside of the tree line. Several guys made their presence known, and they surrounded her, and it seems like they had intentions on doing something unfortunate. Well, before they could do anything like that, this dogman made its presence known, and, well, let's just say it talked them out of focusing on the woman. After it made its presence known, none of those guys had any interest in that woman whatsoever. They had other things or something else on their mind. I'll just put it like that and leave it like that. So, yeah, the dogman did save her that day. Again, I don't know if it was trying to save her or if it just saw those guys as a challenge and it decided to make an example out of them. But yeah, maybe it did try to save her. I doubt it, but maybe it did.
That's so interesting. I find that fascinating, because it makes me wonder if it seems like they have a certain amount of intelligence, and I wonder if they have emotion. Maybe, maybe not in the way that we do. I mean, what do you gather? Do you feel like they have emotion and intelligence?
I don't know about that. That's really a good question. It's hard to say. I will tell you this, though. Some people have these ideas, crazy ideas about dogmen and how to deal with their presence if they're around that just don't float at all, such as, well, if a bunch of us go out, we can intimidate one that's in our area to the point where it's not going to come around. Well, I've never seen any evidence pointing towards the idea that if you have a group of guys with you, for example, that's going to be enough of an intimidation factor to keep a dogman that wants to come around you away. These guys, they go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. I mean, people with guns in clear view. They can have guns in clear view, and these guys sometimes will still come in. So, yeah, if you want to try to play the intimidation game with these guys, give it up. It just does not work. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I love that. And Jason wants to know, have you ever had any encounters? I'll just read the question. He says, do Dogman encounters usually happen to people who've seen Bigfoot or orbs? Like people who encounter other types of phenomena, are they more likely to encounter a Dogman, would you say?
Well, that's up in the air. I will tell you, most of the eyewitnesses I've spoken with have never seen the Sasquatch. So it doesn't seem like the two are tied together, but there is such a thing as being on the radar. Once you've had another experience, an experience with a cryptid period, that does make you a lot more likely to have another cryptid encounter. Now, whether it's going to be with a Dogman, if you've seen the Sasquatch, I don't know, but it sure does seem to me, because I've spoken with tons and tons of Sasquatch eyewitnesses over the years too, because of course I produce 2 Sasquatch podcasts as well. But yeah, I mean, it does seem to increase the odds you're going to have another encounter. It does seem like, okay, if you have one encounter, it does make it more likely that you're going to be on the radar, but yeah, that's far from a given. Eyewitnesses, they want to know about that a lot. Okay, I had one Dogman encounter. Does that mean I'm doomed to have another? Well, most Dogman eyewitnesses do not have follow-up encounters, but it does seem to increase to a certain degree the odds that they will have another one.
Now, yeah, I think we talked a little bit about this before the show. You have had an encounter yourself with Sasquatch, right? Or something that maybe you thought was an encounter, or maybe?
Well, I'm convinced that I had a huge 1,000-pounder literally just feet behind me. This happened 40 to 45 years ago when I was deer hunting. But yeah, when you hear the particulars behind that experience that day, I'm convinced I had to have a 1,000-pounder literally just feet behind me.
Wow, that is insane. Wow, that's have you ever heard of a dog? And this is probably a crazy question you probably get, but like it's so interesting. Like, have you ever heard of anybody saying that Dogman and Bigfoot went at each other and met and like fought or anything like that? I know that sounds crazy, but like, I mean, I have to ask it. You know, it's probably on everybody's mind. You know.
Oh yeah, I've heard that quite a few times. They normally seem to mix like oil and water, but then again, there have been credible eyewitnesses who've reported to me they saw these guys together. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard to know. I will tell you, it does seem like most of the time they mix like oil and water. They just don't mix at all. I mean, there have been a lot of credible eyewitnesses who've reported living in an area where they have Sasquatch around, they have Dogmen around, but there's some kind of a geological feature between the two territories, like maybe a creek, a stream, a river. The Dogmen are on this side, the Sasquatch are on that side, a canyon. So, yeah, they normally do seem to try to stay apart and mind their own business. But there's also, too, that possibility that Dogmen just might predate on juvenile Sasquatch. It's really hard to say.
Yeah. Speaking of juvenile, has anybody ever seen, this is Julia's question, I'll put it up. This is, Julia says, has anybody ever seen a child Dogman? Or like the offspring of a Dogman?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been reported to me where someone saw a juvenile or a baby, what appeared to be a pup even. So, yeah, that definitely has been reported to me.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah. This one is from, let's see here. I just lost it. Let's see here. Where'd it go? Puck Elf. He says, let's see here. He says, I've heard you speak of Dogman burrows. Are they the physical homes or hidden portals, would you say?
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't think these guys require burrows for protection from the weather or anything like that. Hey, Jess, how are you? That's a Cryptid Huntress. If you haven't checked out her podcast, thanks for the good words, Jess. But if you haven't listened to the Cryptid Huntress podcast, you definitely should. She does great work. But as far as Dogmen go, I really don't think they require protection from the weather. These guys, there's so many canards out there when it comes to Dogmen. If I do this, and that'll keep that from happening. If I do that, that'll keep this from happening when it comes to Dogmen. Such as, if it's really nasty weather out, then these guys, they're not going to want to be out in that. Well, don't think that. There have been plenty of eyewitnesses who've been out in blizzards and nasty thunderstorms where it was raining sideways, and guess what they ran into? But then again, keep in mind, if you're a predator, which these guys are clearly obligate carnivores, if you're going to try to make a living and hunt prey, those are the best conditions to go out. The prey can't hear you. They can't see you very well either. They can't smell you when the wind's blowing so hard. And if you come from downwind, so those are perfect conditions for these guys to be out and about making a living. But yeah, with that all said, I just don't think they require a burrow to quote unquote protect themselves from the weather, to bed down, to go to bed. I just don't think that's necessary. No, it seems like they do use burrows. For what reason, I don't know. Maybe to whelp pups. It's really hard to say. But as far as protection, I don't buy it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, there has to be a woman dog, right? Like it's Collective Awakening says, are there always men dogmen, or are there dog women, like AKA bitches? So, they call women dog. It's kind of, yeah. But do you see there being dog women? I guess.
Oh yeah.
Like.
Oh yeah. I've had a repeat guest come on the show who she's seen a female dog woman. I just call them dog women. She saw a dog woman enough times where she actually came up with a name for this dog woman. She calls her Ember. And then there have been other guests too who have reported, credible eyewitnesses who've reported seeing female dog men. So yeah, it definitely does happen. It only makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. How do witnesses usually describe the physical features of Dogman compared to like what we would think of as a classic werewolf, or like? I mean, because I've heard you say that some of these dogmen can be like 12 foot tall, 4 feet wide. I've heard stories of, people driving in their cars and the dogman being so fast that they're able to keep speed with it and run beside the car. I've heard that they have crazy features and abilities. Is that true? Or to the best of your knowledge?
Oh yeah, they can do amazing things. They really can. And you're right. Yeah, some at maturity, what would appear to be maturity, can reach right around 12 feet tall in height. But understand, they've got a lot of different looks. As far as canine type dogmen go, I think they're probably 8-ish, maybe 9-ish different variants. Some look like a hyena chimera. Others can look as unassuming as a timber wolf that can stand up and walk around on 2 feet. Others can look as monstrous as the worst werewolf out of your nightmares. So some look like the Van Helsing werewolf. Others look like the werewolves from Underworld. They've got a lot of different looks, a lot of different appearances. Some look kind of like greyhounds in a way that can stand up and walk on 2 feet. So it just runs the gamut. It really does.
Wow. So, going back to this, do you think this is something that like mainstream, like what would you call that? Like, I don't know the name for it. Like mainstream, classification of animals. Like that the ranch is like missing something. That they're missing the dogman, they're missing the Sasquatch, and like if they would be an unclassified creature, and why would that be? Do you think it's because they're supernatural? You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, they're not missing them. The government knows about them. The government knows a lot about dogmen, a lot about Sasquatch, but understand they don't want them officially recognized. They want them to be swept under the rug. The government, the world couldn't handle the knowledge that these guys are extant, are definitely out there. Look at how poorly we handle things like that. Things that aren't nearly as controversial as that. If you let that out of the bag, yeah, society would collapse around our ears. It really would.
I would agree with that. I mean, you can kind of see it with the UFO phenomena. You know what I mean? Every time the so-called government breaks out like new information on the UFO phenomena, it's like the audience, not the audience, but the public always wants to either say it's fake, or they don't want to acknowledge it, and it's like it's a huge thing, and you're right. It's this, I can kind of parallel with the UFO phenomenon, where the government knows so much about that. They know about the alien abductions and all the contact, but they don't want us to know for some reason. Like they want us to keep us like they want to keep us ignorant. So I don't, yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, I do understand it, but it's like, in a way, it doesn't make sense to me as far as like they should just give us the information and let us discern and do what we will with it. Um, but do you see regional differences in sightings? Like, for example, are Dogman encounters more aggressive in certain areas? From what you see?
No, it seems like it's all pretty much homogenous. Dogmen don't seem to be any more aggressive in this area versus over in that area. West Coast, East Coast, down south. It seems like they have the same mentality everywhere, wherever they're seen. In different countries, seems like it's pretty consistent. Unlike Sasquatch, where it seems like the ones in the south tend to be a little hotter headed and whatnot, the ones way up north tend to be a little calmer. So, yeah, it definitely doesn't seem to be the same between the two, between Sasquatch and Dogman that way.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask you, what kind of psychological impact do you see most often in people who are after these encounters? Is it like PTSD?
Oh, yeah. Well, understand. I mean, when you have an encounter like that, it really depends for the most part. Well, it depends on a lot of things, a lot of factors. But I'll put it to you this way: the more skeptical, the more closed minded a person is, the much more likely they are to have a lot of trouble coming to terms with a Dogman encounter. I mean, understand, ever since you learn how to understand the spoken word as a little kid, it's hammered into your head that the world operates this way, not that way. Whatever happens in your life tomorrow, you can expect this to happen, but there's no possibility of that happening because that over there, that's not how the world works. There are no such things as monsters. We know everything that's out there. At least that's what's preached. So you tend to buy into that because you live year after year after year. You don't see any evidence that that's not accurate. Well, all of a sudden one day you have a Dogman encounter and find out that's bunk. So it just really has a way of turning your life upside down. Being humans, one of the things that we cling to for comfort, for a feeling of safety and security, is being able to predict what might happen in our lives. Our fake belief that we really understand the world. There's so many things about the world that we don't understand at all. But when you have a Dogman encounter and all of a sudden your comfort factor is snatched out from underneath you, I mean, that really makes it very difficult for a lot of these eyewitnesses to pick up the pieces and consequently put their lives back together. So it's my job to basically remind them of things. Understand, when you have an experience in life, as long as you're not traumatized, most well-adjusted adults, they can work their way through it, even if it's a difficult situation. But if it's a traumatic experience, i.e. a Dogman encounter, most eyewitnesses are knocked so far off base by a traumatic Dogman encounter that they consequently can't see the forest for the trees, when if they wouldn't have been so traumatized, they would be able to realize the things they need to realize to be able to get over that encounter that they can't realize, they can't process, because guess what? They've been knocked so far off base, it's like a plane flying straight and level. And then all of a sudden turbulence comes along that's so strong and upsets that plane to a point where it can knock that plane out of control. It's kind of like an F-14 going into a flat spin it can't recover from. So, yeah, it's basically my job to remind the eyewitnesses of all these things that under normal circumstances would come to mind to them, that are all that's required in most cases for them to get over their encounters. Well, that's where I come in. Like I said, I just remind them of these things. And once I do, that works wonders to help them get back to where they needed to be and get back to good after having these experiences.
Do you find that a lot of people, once they have these encounters, they fear going back out into the woods?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they definitely do. They get afraid of getting out of bed and going to the bathroom at night. A lot of them are afraid of just laying in bed. they're so afraid that the dogmen are going to come into their homes and get them. So, yeah, I mean, they go from feeling confident and comfortable in their lives to next thing you know, they're controlled by fear. And when you're controlled by fear, your life is miserable. So, yeah, it's just my job to take that fear away and just basically help them understand everything is okay. You didn't get out of that encounter because of anything to do with what you did. You were allowed to leave. You have yet to encounter a bloodthirsty, mindless, monstrous killing machine that will rip you apart as soon as look at you. Because if that's what you encountered, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. So, yeah, that's just basically, that's what I do.
Yeah, I agree. That it's fascinating. It is big. Then one of the last questions I have is, are there common themes among witnesses? Like, like for like in the UFO community, we have missing time. They'll see UFO activity. Sometimes they'll see shadow figures during an abduction. They'll see sometimes an image of an owl or a deer, like kind of stuff like that. Like, are there common themes among Dogman encounters?
No common themes other than the fear that they feel, the uncontrollable fear. For a lot of these eyewitnesses, they feel this uncontrollable fear even before they see the dogman. Now, what's behind that? It just might be infrasound, it might be something else. Maybe they are demonic entities, and that's where that fear comes from. It's hard to say. It's so hard to say, but yeah, that right there, the fear factor is really the only common repeating theme that these eyewitnesses report.
Yeah. And then what advice would you have for someone who suddenly finds themselves face to face with a dog man, or someone who's just had a terrifying encounter?
Well, if someone finds himself in the middle of a dogman encounter, I'd highly recommend that you treat it the same way that you would treat running into a bear. Just don't do anything to make it think you're challenging its dominance. Try not to look like prey. Definitely don't run. I'd recommend that you, in a controlled fashion, try to leave the area without taking your eye off of it. Don't make eye contact. Just maybe walk sideways. That way you can monitor where it's at, all the while leaving the area under a controlled fashion.
Yeah.
But yeah, just treat it like you would if you bumped into a bear, and you should be just fine, because people encounter these things time after time where the dogman will do everything it can do to make them think they're about to be eaten, but at the last moment, they're allowed to leave without a scratch. So if you have an encounter, please try to keep that in mind. I know it's easier said than done, but try to do that.
I love that. Yeah. And then I want to know, my last question is, how has the cryptid community responded to dogman research compared to Bigfoot research?
Well, there's still a lot of dogman investigators out. I'm sorry, still a lot of Sasquatch investigators out there who think dogmen are a joke, but that's just their ignorance. They haven't looked into the phenomenon. They don't realize how common of a thing dogman encounters are, so they're just jumping to conclusions without knowing what they're talking about. But yeah, still there are a lot of people in the Sasquatch community that think this old dogman phenomenon is a joke, and that's okay. Hopefully they won't have an encounter themselves. I will tell you, there have been a lot of Sasquatch investigators who, I mean, they'll have what most people would consider to be a frightening Sasquatch encounter, but they keep on going out unfazed. They have one dogman encounter and it frightens them out of the woods.
Yeah, I agree. Let me see here. Let me see. Puckout wants to know real quick. I'll just ask this question. Yeah, and if anybody has any last questions for Vic, put them in the chat now. Puckout says, "Can we ask Vic for a good Jeff Meldrum quote that he liked?" I'm not sure who Jeff Meldrum is.
Well, Jeff Meldrum he was the professor from Idaho State University who recently passed away, unfortunately. Now, I don't know of any quotes that he put out, so unfortunately, I can't do that for you. But I was sad to hear that he passed away. A lot of people have been passing away, a lot more than normal, it seems like.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like a lot of souls are checking out. If you believe in that, like it's yeah. And then Kriya says, "Where do you think they sleep and where do they live? Do you think there's a chance that they?" And I know we kind of touched on this, but do you think there's a chance they could be interdimensional and they come here to our dimension for food or, just to kind of check it out? Or do you have a theory on that?
Well, that's entirely possible. I mean, you might have some that are from the ether who do wink in and week out of this dimension or go wherever, who knows. And they're not sleeping here. Maybe they do wink into our existence, and sometimes they do sleep here. But all we can do is guess on that. Understand, you're talking about an apex predator, a true obligate carnivore. So with that in mind, it's going to have a huge home range if it is bound to this earth the way we are. I mean, all they can eat is meat. If you want to know what an animal's habits are, look at the teeth. The teeth will tell you everything you need to know about their habits. If their teeth are all made for processing meat the way a dogman's teeth are, every last one, that tells you they are obligate carnivores. That's how they make their living. So that, coupled with the fact how big they get, I mean, it doesn't seem to take long before they've grown to the point where they're like, in a lot of cases, 600 pounds or more in body weight. Well, we don't know what their metabolism is like, but for a human, we do know that it's an approximation, but roughly, if you multiply your body weight as a human by 10, that'll give you a good estimate on how many calories you can get by on fairly well. If you're a 200-pound man, if you can take in, say, roughly 2,000 calories per day, are you going to be fat and happy on that? No. Can you get by on that? Yeah, you sure can. Now, if they have a faster metabolism than what we do, which is entirely possible, then you'd have to increase that factor more than 10. But it's just a guess. But we can use that factor of multiplying their body weight by 10 just to get a baseline. What I'm getting at is, if you have a 600-pound dog man, multiply that body weight times 10, okay, now you're talking about something that's going to require at least 6,000 calories a day to live on. Well, if you stay in one spot very long and have to take in 6,000 plus calories a day, it's not going to take you long before you blow through all the resources in any given area. It's kind of an aside, but I had a guest on the show on Dogman Encounters recently who said that, I don't buy this at all, but he said that he thought that dogmen make a habit out of running around in numbers all the way up to like 15 to 30 dogmen. He said that was the norm. I take exception to that. That just doesn't make sense at all because of what I'm talking about here with the daily caloric requirements and all. If you're looking at just one 600-pound dog man, like I said, it's probably going to require at least 6,000 calories a day just to get by on. So just by itself, if it stayed in one area, like I was starting to say, it would blow through all the resources in that given area in no time. If you had 15, if you had especially 30 of them, multiply 6,000 times 15. Multiply it times 30. That's an atrocious number of calories that these guys are going to require day in, day out. No area is going to support that. It's not. There's a reason why large predators, they don't hang out in numbers any place except Africa. Africa has numbers of prey animals in abundance to the point where, lions, for example, can get away with that. But if you notice, nowhere else in the world does that happen on land. For a reason. Over in America, we can't support that sort of a situation. So that right there is exactly why I don't believe for a second that these guys hang out in numbers. But I mean, getting back to the whole daily caloric requirement, that's why I'm convinced that these guys, they live alone unless they're getting together to breed or for some other strange reason. But I think they live alone and they just operate inside of a huge home range, the same way that a grizzly would, for example, or a mountain lion would.
Yeah. So again, with all that said, you don't think they travel in packs like wolves do? Like wolves like definitely travel in packs. But you're saying the dogman is definitely a more independent creature. It wants to live on its own, I guess.
Oh, definitely. And they're quite a bit bigger than wolves too. But I mean, beyond a certain point, a predator is not going to run around in numbers. lions, a pride of lions, that's just not going to work here in North America because, yeah, the prey in North America, the resources in any given area just wouldn't support that.
Wow, this has been fascinating, Vic. I could talk to you all day about this. It really is. Like, I love learning more about Dogman. And again, I just want to thank you for, like, and I bet you I can say this on behalf of the audience. I bet you so many of us have tuned in, like, whether we were having a bad day or a good day or it was a rainy day, just one of those days where you just like, you know what, I want to escape from reality for a little bit and just like tune into something, and you just zone into an episode of Dogman Encounters. And I'll tell you what, it can just take you away to like an interesting land of like, you know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. Like, and the way that the guests that you get on that tell the story, that tell their encounters, they're also amazing as well. So, I mean, your channel is awesome, dude. It's yeah, thank you so much for everything you do.
Well, thanks for the good words, but yeah, I wouldn't want to have it any other way. I just feel so blessed to be in a position to be able to do that.
Yeah, and Jason put his link up. It's youtube.com/@Dogman Encounters. Guys, everybody go subscribe over there. And did you anything else you want to promote while you're here? Or
well, just putting the word out. If you've had a Dogman encounter that you either need help with, or maybe you want to come on the show and share your Dogman experience, your Dogman sighting with the listeners, and yeah, just go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you do that, then by all means, I'll contact you and schedule a phone consultation, and we'll take it from there then.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a real honor, and I'd love to do it again. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll have a new stream tomorrow. And I think I have 2 shows tomorrow. And over the next few days, I have 2 shows. And yeah, we will see you guys tomorrow, and have a good